Hey everyone, it's Dave of Blue Bears Games, and welcome back to another episode of Blues Budget Battle Brews. This week's deck is Azorius Flicker Control. It is a white and blue deck that's main focus is on different creatures with various enters the battlefield effects that handle different situations. We're going to flicker them, and if you don't know what flickering means, I'll read the cards off to you and you'll see it. They all enter the battlefield with good effects that can help control the board state so you can freely attack at will. Alright. With this deck, life is a resource in that you just need to survive until you can gain control. It's not a typical control deck, especially in white blue where it's countermagic. That is a different deck. That is the actual Azorius control deck, and I will actually have a video for that coming very soon. So let's go ahead and get started on the deck. I'll show you what it is, and then we're going to do a little something different going forward. I'm actually going to give you I gave you the synopsis of what the deck does. I'm actually going to show you the deck, and then I'm going to give you some upgrade options at the end of the actual part where I show you the deck. So let's mention one thing before I actually start. For those of you that are worried about the fact that I'm not wearing gloves for some reason, or the fact that the cards aren't sleeved, I have washed my hands. I always wash my hands beforehand, so you don't have to worry about me ruining the cards. I have no oils on my hands. As you can see, they're nice and dry. So let's get started. Alright, so all the creatures have enters the battlefield effects, and they all do various things. There are a multitude of them, so I'm going to go over them as quickly as possible. Up first, we have Fogwalker. It has Skulk, and then when it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. That's to make sure you can help lock down some things. Tomb Raider. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. It's also a 1/1 flyer, so that's your card draw. Seagate Oracle, if you need more card draw, this when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 2 cards of your library. You put one of them into your hand, the other on the bottom of your library. And the reason why these are different is because one says draw, the other one does not. So if your opponent has something that hurts you for drawing a card, the Seagate Oracle will get around that. 2 of them. Aether Adept, when it enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. That could be yours or your opponent's in case you want to bring something back to your hand for some reason. Archaeomancer, it's the most expensive, I think, casting cost as far as the enter the battlefield effect creatures. It's 4. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. That'll be important. I'll tell you why in a second. Sailor of Songbirds. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Originally, I had something else in this slot. I added this because it creates a flyer. Vesper Lark. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card with power 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has Evoke. You're not going to use that. You're just going to get in place so you can flicker it. And I want to show you that the power and toughness on Fogwalkers 1, Tomb Raiders 1, Oracle, Seagate Oracles 1, the Aether Adept's different, Archaeomancers are 1, and the Sailor of Songbirds. So most of the creatures in this deck will benefit from this just because they'll have power 1. So there's 2 of them in there. The first rare we're going to come to is Restoration Angel. It's flash flying and 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control, and that's immediate. It's not at the end of the turn. There's a combo with this. This is the combo. Wisp-Weaver Angel. So it is flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. I'm actually going to revise that. That's not the combo. There is a combo. It's not in here, and I'll explain that in the upgrade section how you go about doing it. So they basically flicker your creatures for you, and they return immediately. That's what these 2 do. The wild card, which would be the 4 rare, an additional rare, or the mythic, is Sun Titan. It is a 6/6 for 6. It has vigilance, and then whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. All these cards, I tried to get as many of them as I could to be under 3 or under. The only one that did not make it was Archaeomancer. There may be one that can do that, but not as just, it has some side effects to it. It doesn't just bring something back to your hand like the Archaeomancer. So it's the only one that doesn't really benefit from the Sun Titan, but almost all of your creatures do. There's other things in here that will benefit as well. So let me continue. The main focus of this deck is to make it so that Soul Herder becomes as big as it can. So it's a 1/1 for 3. And then whenever a creature, it doesn't matter if it's yours or your opponent's, is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you can flicker at the end of the turn your own stuff to get an enters the battlefield effect and give Soul Herder a +1/+1 counter. Solemn Simulacrum is a great card to flicker, because its enter the battlefield is that you may search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. One of the things blue-white doesn't do very well is land search. This helps you go get your land. It also lets you draw a card. If it dies, you're trying not to let it die. You're trying to flicker it. Triskelion is a combo piece here. So it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters, and then at instant speed, you can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to deal damage to target creature or player, so any target. So remember, he comes into play, you can remove the 3 counters and deal 3 damage to anything, flicker it, when it comes back into play, it will get the counters again. So that's the little synergy that goes on there with the flickering. So a flicker deck needs to have flicker cards. So flicker in essence means just to exile something and then return it back to the play. It can either be immediately or at the end of turn. Either way, that's what flicker is. So Justiciar's Portal exiles a creature you control, then you return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It also gains first strike until end of turn. That's not the point of it. It's just to flicker something. So I got a play set of those. So finally a play set. Flicker of Fates. It has the word flicker in it, so it must flicker. Exile target creature or enchantment, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Remember, that's immediately, not at the end of turn. 4 of them. And then 2 momentary blinks. They are 2 to cast. You can exile a creature, then return to the battlefield. Again, immediately it returns. Also has flashback, so you can do it from the graveyard again. Now, that's only if you don't have an Archaeomancer bringing them back to your hand every turn. That's the point of the Archaeomancers, to bring them back. Now, I mentioned with the Sun Titan, things that are also permanents that can be returned to play are things like Oblivion Ring. So it fits the theme of the deck. Oblivion Ring, when it comes into play, you exile a non-land permanent from the game, and then when Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield, you return the thing that was exiled. So if you flicker things such as the Oblivion Ring, and this is where the combo pieces start, and I believe it's another target, that's target creature, and I believe, okay, they're both target creatures, so it doesn't do it. But Oblivion Rings, when you have 2 of them in play, you can flicker them back and forth. But unfortunately, I think Soul Herder itself says creature specifically, if I'm not mistaken. Soul Herder says creature. Okay, so it doesn't work on that part. But it does work to exile your opponent's creatures, and then you get the +1/+1 counter. Got a, looks like a play set of those in there. Yeah, play set of those. Isolation Zone. It's 4 to cast, and when it enters the battlefield, you can exile a creature or enchantment an opponent controls. So there's another exile effect you can use there, and there's 4 of them in there. And then, of course, the lands, which are, 2 Evolving Wilds. I always throw them in there for multicolored decks for mana fixing. So you can go ahead and get, if you're short on one color, you can go get the other. 4 Azorius Guildgates, because that's the budget dual land that you can use. And then the rest are plains and islands, so you can go ahead and just fill that out if you want. If you find the deck is lacking in some way, shape, or form when it comes to getting land out, I tried to fix that as much as I can. There are a couple ways you can do that other than what I've done, but you should be able to draw your way into it. So that is the Azorius Flicker control deck that I have made. It's my budgetary deck. It is for sale, $20. Alright, so a couple of the new section for these decks is going to be an upgrade section. I'm going to go over a couple of things, not everything you can do, but a couple of things. So, the first thing you can do, I would do anyway, is to add 2 more Soul Herders. They are the meat and potatoes of this deck. They're the reason that you're going to win, usually. Then I would change out the Wisp-Weaver Angel for a Felidar Guardian. That will create the infinite loop that I was talking about, where you can exile something and it comes right back. A Felidar Guardian and a the angel. What the angel? The name is the Restoration Angel and Felidar Guardian. They are an infinite combo or an infinite loop if that you can end because it says you may. So you flicker the angel, it comes into play. You flicker the Felidar Guardian, it comes into play. You flicker the angel again, and so on and so on, and then you just keep going, and Soul Herder can become whatever you want it to be as far as counters on it. As far as the flicker cards go, if you want to go cheaper with it, I would switch them out for Cloud Shift and Ephemerate. Ephemerate has that little ability of being able to reuse it again, and Cloud Shift just costs 1 instead of 2, so good options to change out. I would myself add another Restoration Angel or a Sun Titan just for consistency. As far as the Exile enchantments, I would trade out the Isolation Zone for Ixalan's Binding because it's not double white to cast it, and it's also all non-land things instead of just creatures and enchantments. I maybe would add like a Cosima or a Deputy of Detention, maybe a Spell Seeker, or even a couple of Stonehorn Dignitaries so that you can stop your opponent from being able to attack at all. There's also, what the hell is the mage? The blue-white mage that when it comes into play, you can return a creature and they can't play it. I'll actually put it up here. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I just thought about it. Give me a second. Let me think about that. Got it. Reflector Mage. Reflector Mage is what I was trying to think of. It took me a second. I had to pause the video and go look and see. I couldn't remember the name off the top of my head. Reflector Mage would work great in a deck like this. It helps you to control the board a lot better than I believe it would replace the Aether Adept. Easily replace the Aether Adept. So, alright, so that's that one. Where are we at here? Lots of enter the battlefield creatures that do different things. So it will kind of depend on your meta. So if you need life gain, there are creatures that when they enter the battlefield you gain life. There's ones that make it so you can help make your opponent discard a card. Vendilion Click would be an option so that you can control their hand. Just it depends on the situation, your meta, who you're playing, your Groot, all that stuff. So again, it will depend on your meta. And lastly, the land cards. So I'm not telling you to go make this deck into a vintage beast. Let's just be honest. We're not going to go get OG dual lands for this. But, to make this more consistent, you can put in things like the Shockland or the Checkland. So that would be a Hallowed Fountain or a Glacial Forest. That will make the deck run a little bit smoother. So hopefully, you can come up with some ideas to add to it yourself. But that was what I would do. And that's just a couple of the ideas. There's plenty of things that you can do after that. So, that is my time for the week. That is the Azorius Flicker Control deck. It is a Blues Budget Battle Brew deck. It is $20. And if you buy more than one, shipping is free. So they're $20 each, and I've got a bunch of them. I'm going to do a whole bunch more videos. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch and learn about this little brew specifically. Please remember to show your support for the channel and for me by doing the following. Liking this video, subscribing to the channel, that would help me a lot. And if you have not, that's only if you have not done so yet. If you've already done so, thank you for repeatedly coming back. And sharing this out to all of the people through the various platforms available to you. That could be Twitter, Facebook, whatever you can share it out to would be great. I'd love to get this out there. So, like I said before, I want to just reiterate with the purchasing, this is $20. I have a bunch more if you haven't gone to the Facebook page. I have my store. I'm starting to slowly get things set up, and they'll all be up there shortly. Right now, I think I have 22 of the 40 decks that I have built. So, and I'm getting a video ready for each one. I'm slowly getting there. So I'm trying to get the newest versions of decks that I have come up with out there first, and then I'll go over some of the ones that I've already made videos on but have been updated and need a newer video. So anyway, just as a reminder again, like, subscribe, share, all that. That's my time for the week. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys all next week.